Hi, my name is Dan Donahue, Principal Solutions Architect at Nethopper. In today's video, I will demonstrate the KAOPS platform's ability to automate your CI/CD pipeline using Argo WorkFlows. Argo WorkFlows is an open source project that is a generic workflow engine that can execute jobs in a Kubernetes environment in a parallel manner. In today's video, we will demonstrate a simple workflow that monitors a source code repo in a specific branch looking for any merges to that branch, upon which it will check out that repo, build the application, create a Docker image, and push it to Docker Hub. So let's go to our SaaS. So the elements we're going to be working with today is we're going to configure our workflow to actually look at this directory. And in this directory, you'll see three manifests: event source, sensor, and a workflow template. These are what Argo Workflow will use to monitor for a change, kick off an event, and then ultimately execute the workflow. The event source is a listener that listens for any changes in a particular repo. Once that happens, it will post what's called an event to an event bus. And the event bus will have a sensor that's listening for that. The sensor will then use a workflow template to execute a workflow. So in this case, we have an event source that is looking at a particular repo in the Nethopper public.net called .NET Demo App, which I'll show you in a minute. It has my hub cluster information, so it knows where to post the event to. And this is really what it's looking for. Now, I won't get into all the YAML here, but this is essentially looking for a merge to the branch develop, and it will then kick off or post an event to the event bus where the event source will be listening. The event source will use this workflow template to actually check out, build a Docker image, and then ultimately push to the Docker image. Now, I won't go into all the details of the YAML files here, but essentially you have an event source, listens for the check-in. It will post an event using Argo events. You have the sensor, which will essentially subscribe to that event. Will then use this workflow template to execute that workflow. Now, what is it monitoring? It's monitoring this another public repo within Nethopper.2 called .NET Demo App. This is actually forked from a person called Ben Coleman in the UK who created this .NET app for Kubernetes demonstration purposes. And I've used it before, and it's an excellent app for demonstrating .NET applications in Kubernetes. But the purpose of this is really, we're just going to use that to execute this workflow. So it's going to, you'll see here there are three branches. There's the main branch, develop, and feature branch. And as I just pointed out, our sensor will be listening, or our event source will be listening to any merge to develop in order to trigger that sensor. And so we're going to work out of the feature branch today. So that's our source code. And ultimately, it's going to push it, and I'm going to refresh it here so you'll see that we're looking at the latest thing within this Docker Hub repo. In our Nethopper Docker Hub repo, we have an application called .NET Demo App. And you could see here the latest image is 1.0.15. So what we'll do is we'll make a change that will ultimately push 1.0.16 to this app. So let's go and create our workflow. So we'll come over to the Workflows tab, and we'll see I did have one completed workflow, but we don't have any workflows being monitored right now by Argo events and workflows. So let's add one. So we're going to create a workflow app. We're going to just call it simply .NET Demo App. You can call it whatever you want. And we want to point to the repository where those Argo events and workflows manifests are. And those are in our KAOPS repo. It's in the main branch. And the path is .NET Demo App. Okay. And so what will happen when I click save here is Argo will then go and scrape that directory in that repo looking for event sources, sensors, and workflows. And it found them. And so basically it's now monitoring them. Once this guy, he's in sync now. So we're all good. So we have one sensor we can see, a .NET Demo App. And we can look at the logs, and there's really not much going on yet. But, you know, once we kick off the workflow, there'll be more to look at. We have one event source, and we have 3 workflow templates. Even though we have a single workflow file, we have 3 templates in there. One is to extract the Git token for my creds to be able to check that out. I have a workflow template that will clone that repo and then build and push the image. And then what we'll see here, so here we see my completed workflow from before. So if I do my logs, you can see all the logs here. We won't get into the log details, but if you need the logs, they are there. And so you saw it took about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And I did that earlier today. It's 11, yeah, that was a couple hours ago. So when I make a change and push it to that branch, we should see a new workflow kick off. So let's go off and make that happen. So again, we know it's monitoring this repo. Well, it's looking in the develop branch for a change, but let's make a change in our feature branch that we will push to our develop branch, merge to it, and which will kick off the workflow. So I'm just simply going to come down here and say test. And in my particular workflow, whatever I add here will become the Docker image tab. So as you recall, we have 1015 here. I'm just going to call this 1016, and I'm going to make a simple change to that repo. Now, if I come back here, I still haven't kicked off a workflow. This one, again, if you, by this check mark, you can see it's completed. So let's now merge this to the feature branch, to the develop branch. So I'm going to create a pull request. I'm going to say from my feature branch in my repository, I don't want to go to Ben's repo. I want to go to my Nethopper fork, and I don't want to go into the main branch. I want to go into the develop branch. And so I'm going to have the same commit tag. And so I'm going to create that pull request and then merge it. And we should then kick off a workflow. So I'm ready to merge it. So let's click merge, confirm it. And that should kick off a workflow, which you see here. It's now kicked off. And it's going to go through each of those steps where it's going to use that Git token to check out that branch, do a build of it, and then commit it to Docker Hub. So it's going to take about 4 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll be right back when the workflow is completed. And we're back. And as you can see, our workflow just completed. And it says it completed successfully. Now, if it has completed successfully, that means when I refresh this Docker Hub page, we should see 1.0.16. So let's refresh that page. And there it is. There is our image. So that demonstrates the simple ability of Argo WorkFlows to check out, build, and create and push a Docker image. And here we can see our logs. And again, I'm not going to go through all the details, but every step of the way, all the work that's been done will be simply logged in those logs. So that concludes our workflows demos. Look for more workflow demos in the future, ones that are a bit more, let's just say, not complicated, but more steps. Like, let's deploy the application. Let's build a cluster. The workflow engine you'll find within Argo can be used to automate your CI/CD pipeline as far left or as far right in the DevOps world that you would like it to.